Happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you, thank you for joining. I do have a nice special guest with me today, Lux, who I think most of you are by this time fairly familiar with. Um, Lux has a really awesome project that he's been working on with a handful of other innovators, and I think Lux, we've been having this conversation for a couple months now, and it's been like, can we talk about it yet? Can we talk about it yet? And I think today's finally that day. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for everybody else who's joining from the MCP community, and anybody else who trickles in. But yeah, I think this discussion is kind of unique because, as a community, we've been talking a lot about very specifically Mega Cryptopolis, Mega World, and that closed ecosystem. We always talk about it in the context of play to earn gaming and metaverses and all that stuff. But we're here talking today about like the world beyond the world that we've been talking about. So I think to start, Lux, for some of the folks here who are not familiar with yourself or with your project, what would you let's introduce you. Let's get everybody familiar with kind of how you came into Mega Cryptopolis, and then I want to start asking you some questions about the Legioverse and all that amazing work that you've got going on.
Yeah, so I got into the blockchain world in general pretty early on. Started kind of playing around with it late 2010, early 2011. Started working in it more professionally in mid 2012. Um, and saw it for the potential that it had to really be able to create a lot of sustainable value, as well as a lot of take that power, give it back to the individuals that are part of the service. And that really inspired me. And then was an early adopter in a lot of the early metaverse stuff. Decentraland, I think I was like one of the first 100 people to own land in it. And kind of moving forward from there, I didn't get into Mega though until kind of late in the game. Got into Mega about a year ago. It was February of 2021, and I actually got in by selling a single War Riders truck that I had from over in that verse, and decided to put that money over. Picked up a couple of citizens, had no idea what I was doing. Of course, didn't join the Discord, didn't read any of the documentation, just jumped in and completely screwed myself over. But figured it out pretty quickly. Joined the Discord, met yourself and a few other good folks in the community that showed me the error of my ways, and have been building up from there.
That's amazing. It's funny because you I think you go through that same life cycle that so many other people have, which is you know, there's that social aspect and there's the game itself, whatever you're playing, whatever you're doing, but that the community behind the game is really like that's what actually creates the experience. The game can only go so far. The game and the site and the digital properties of that venture, like they can draw you in and they can get you going, but the actual 360 view of what this experience has to offer and even like the opportunities that you have as an individual member of that community, investor, whatever you want to call yourself, like you actually don't reach the full bounds of that opportunity until you start working with the community. And I know as we talk a bit today, that's actually going to play a really big part of what it is that you're looking to build. So I'm thrilled that you did find not only the game, but then you did find us as well. And then it's just it's so ironic because like, wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right here, right now, if those steps weren't taken. If you would continue to play the game as you were, if you just continue to be an island, you wouldn't have stepped into the community. We wouldn't have met other people. Wouldn't have met you. You wouldn't have met them. And I think as we talk about what you're building, a lot of this like there's don't get me wrong, there's a huge weight of this on your shoulders, but I think that as we've spoken and as other people speak to you, that cross pollination of ideas is really what helps bring your vision to that next level. So I hope that it's at least the bare minimum lesson that we can all learn that says, yes, you can be an island in these games, and yes, you can just do your own thing, but there is a real large value proposition to actually joining and being part of a community and not just a random name in a Discord, but an actual contributing member, somebody who's going out, speaking to people, talking to people, and just genuinely caring about the welfare and well being of others. So thank you for everything that you've done. Let's
Well, and thank you. I mean, that's a huge part of the value proposition that I've always loved about the blockchain in general is you can strike out on your own, but the decentralized effort is the community effort at heart.
Yes. And I loved I feel like it's like little teasers, bits, bits and pieces here and there, but lots of what you're constructing, what you're going to talk about, really I think addresses the fact that it can be a little overwhelming at first when you enter this space, or even if you're in this space but you're entering a new game. And I think what you're going to talk to us about today is really like how you're not only creating an experience around the game and the metaverses themselves, but also creating this very inclusive, fun social environment to help kind of alleviate some of that stress and anxiety that you get even as an adult. Like it doesn't matter whether you're walking into a party like in person or you're walking into a new Discord and you want to learn and you want to ask questions. You're like, I don't know who to ask. Like, should I say something? Should I not? Should I just read? I love, I love what you're building around that as well. So let's start with you've introduced this concept of the Legioverse, and I've heard that word said, a whole bunch now. I'm sure others are hearing it and reading it, and they're asking themselves, what does Legioverse mean? So, what does Legioverse mean to you? And what is it that when other people see or hear that word, what do you want them to immediately think of?
Right. So, to me, the Legioverse, as its direct translation, it is a collection of verses. We have these individual metaverses, and similar to the early blockchains, Bitcoin blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, many of them are very secular. They don't interact with each other. There's very very low interactability with each other, and very very high friction to move between one to the next. I mean, case in point, I sell an item in War Riders, I want to move that over into Mega, and I'm going to lose 2/3 of the value in transaction fees just to move it. Legioverse is the concept of creating that low friction capability by creating a blanket metaverse that acts as a verse native transition point from one metaverse to the next.
I love that, and as you talk about like that friction, it's not only friction from one game to another, but also friction within the game. I think we've all experienced that. For some of the folks who are playing multiple games or have different projects, I think one of the challenging things is we all want to fund the journey, or we know that funding the journey is one of the most important parts. You can't get to where you're going from where you are if you don't have the capital or the means to get there. And so that, like, your ability to play different games or participate in different experiences in different communities, and then take your rewards from one place, move them to another so that you can expand what you're doing in that place. Like, there really is. There's a lot of money, time, and stuff just burnt and lost in that process. And to your point, is also extremely I would say it's not even overwhelming. I'm trying to think of the word. It's scary. Like, myself, I am like, I'm here, we're talking about play to earn gaming and blockchain and Web3 and all that stuff. I am like barely competent in anything Web3. So I'm the person that's saying, well, wait a minute. So I've got Ethereum in my Coinbase wallet and I need to turn it into Avalanche and get that over to the AVAX network. And it's just like that whole process is just it's scary because one wrong move, you can send something to the wrong place. And I really love that you're going into this recognizing that there is a lot of friction around navigating and exploring all the different worlds and chains and technology that's popping up. And it feels like what you're trying to create is a safe, exciting, and social way to explore, learn, understand, and participate in all that those individual pieces has to offer without that sense of like dread that sometimes comes from trying to learn something new or move something from one place to another.
Exactly. I mean, and like I can definitely say, being part of blockchain since very much some of its early days, I watched the evolution where, I remember when the only way to access anything was literally just direct, command line, just trying to figure things out with no graphic interface. I actually moved over personally to pretty much live entirely on blockchain as far as all of my assets, my day-to-day living, et cetera, in late 2015, early 2016, when it was very, very hard to do so. Dealing with that physical on ramp, off ramp was almost impossible. Now I have, a crypto Visa card in my wallet. Everything's a lot easier these days. And I see the same barriers being put up in metaverse that were originally put up in the earlier days of just the blockchain as a whole. And I feel like there are ways around that, and that's part of what we're trying to solve.
That's it's a user experience thing, right? It's one of those things that's it's like you have to solve for it. As you yourself start to get acclimated to the world around you, it's very, very easy to forget just how much friction there is because you're focused on the opportunity. You're focused on the opportunity. When you focus on the opportunity, sometimes you neglect to remember where you came from. And I love that. Even in our initial discussions talking about this project several months back, it was your background that really, really intrigued me because, like you said, like you were here from the inception of this stuff. And I think that's something that's really, really important to highlight before we even jump into what you're building and what you're creating. I think it's really, really important for people here to understand that you're not jumping into this after having, witnessed the world for a year. This is what you've lived and breathed for the last, well, about 20, it's actually 10 years ago. Oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
2012 is 10 years ago. Oh, where has the time
Yep.
gone? So tell us a little bit more about like how you came into the space, what it was that intrigued you, like what was it that made you back in 2012 say, "Hell yes, this is my future. This is the future." Because I think that little origin story is going to be critical to kind of helping people see that this vision and what you're creating you've built quite rapidly and very like you've done all the right things, you've like all the legal obligations, the compliance, you've checked all those boxes. But this is not something that you just started building. It's been 10 years in the making. So talk to us a little bit about how you came into that blockchain space and maybe tee up for us, if you will, um, where you started versus you're sitting in your home in December saying, I got an idea.
Okay, so I actually in 2012, to preface, I was in middle school. Um, well, actually, maybe I was in the very beginning of high school. I was somewhere around there, and I was doing freelance coding projects. And it was a way to make some extra money. And obviously, I was having to send everything through my mother's bank account because there was no way I could legally do those jobs yet. And I got a message from somebody. They're like, "Hey, can you help me build part of my application? Can I pay you in Bitcoin?" I was like, "Sure." What the hell is Bitcoin? And so I ended up looking into it, and I came across Satoshi Nakamoto's original white paper. And I'm not sure if you've ever read it, but if you haven't, you should. It is the fundamental document that I have chosen to live my entire life by from that day. And the reason why is just the fact of like the concept to which he was describing this idea of a a decentralized world in which, as weird as to say, greed, which is a fundamental part of the human existence, would be used rather than as a force for the corruption and the downfall of societies, as it always has been, but as a force to actually continue bearing value, building value, and putting that value into the world. A way of essentially incentivizing what a lot of people would say is the worst aspects of the human nature and turning those into something that is a force for positive change. And that is something that I got behind right away. I absolutely love the concept of it. And it was no looking back. I immediately switched over everything I was doing, started studying, blockchain around the clock. When Ethereum came out, I was literally like digging through Reddits for any little scrap of information I could come up with for like how to learn Solidity coding. And I've just been rampant for it ever since. And then as far as it goes to, like going from there to where I am now, um, I mean, I've pretty much worked on something blockchain related every day for, well, since 2012. Been a part of it constantly. Even in order to fund the Legioverse project, I ended up actually selling one of my very first pieces of Decentraland that I bought back in the day, and ended up putting those fundings over into actually being able to do this. And that is definitely something I would never have been able to do had I not gotten into blockchain and been able to take advantage of the opportunities that it afforded to.
All right, so the real question is the original project that you did back in 2012 where you got paid in Bitcoin. I'm assuming that Bitcoin does not still exist, but let's say it did hypothetically. When you look back and say, wish I'd kept that Bitcoin, how much did that person actually pay for that quick project?
They paid me 100 Bitcoin.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I feel that one for you.
Which, by the way, at the time, I think it was, I don't know, $12.
I think we can just end the stream right there. So, well, this is a story about how Lux was paid 100 Bitcoin when he was a teenager to build a project. And, well, in hindsight, Wow, but it
I mean, to be fair, I still have one of the first Ethereum that I picked up, and I picked that up for $4.
okay, all
So
right. Well, hey, glass half full there. Oh boy. No, it's what I love about it because I mean that's completely unrelated to the project, but I feel like it's a point that luckily as somebody who was not an early adopter to crypto who came in, I mean I think I got lucky. I came in at the bottom of the market back in March of 2020. So I've lucked out there, but I feel like as you go through the space and you talk to people, there are so many people who have that type of story that's like, oh yeah, like you look at Bitcoin or anything and where it's at today versus where it was at when you first started talking about it. And it actually it kind of grounds you and it really helps create some perspective that somebody like you who's been in the space for as long as you have and you've seen it go through that sideways evolution for a while and then just that rampant explosive growth, it has to instill a lot of confidence in you that says that what you're creating, it doesn't actually need to catch on immediately. What you're creating, if you build it the right way, if you build it with intended to have a very long shelf life and be scalable to whatever the future brings, these types of projects in this space, like there's unlimited potential. And I feel like that's something that's so unique to this community. People who have seen that exponential growth over a period of time, it just doesn't happen all that often. So I hope like does that anything like that, what you've seen, how Web3, crypto, and everything else has evolved the last couple of years, does that give you added confidence into, what this project will be, not even just 1 or 2 years from now, but 5, 10, 15 years from now?
so let me preface my answer by first saying I actually don't regret the sales I've made in crypto, despite what it could be worth
Hmm.
now. In the fact that I have never been into I mean, I've made money in crypto. I've been able to definitely upgrade my quality of living vastly from where I started. But that being said, I've never been in crypto simply for the let's squeeze as much money out of it as I can. As I said, I always went back to Satoshi's original, concept for Bitcoin and the idea that what is being created is value earned through provable value given. I've continued to build, one thing after another that's put out a little bit more value here, a little bit more value here. The Legioverse is definitely the most aggressive value add that I've been able to bring forward so far. And so I'm confident in its long-term capabilities because I know the value that it will bring to the overall community. And as long as that's there, it's the whole reason why, like back in December, I was saying like I wanted a $2,000 Ethereum for Christmas, and it looks like I might get it for my birthday instead. But either way, it's the fact that the day-to-day ups and downs, or even the year-to-year ups and downs, truly do not matter to me. It's also the reason why I don't hold Bitcoin anymore, because Bitcoin, as where it was my founding into this, where the Bitcoin white paper is, something that at one point I had framed on my wall. Bitcoin inherently does not bring forward the same value propositions it did 10 years ago as far as the underlying technology, not its dollar amount, but the actual technology. And I will always put every bit of my effort and every bit of my money into wherever I see that the technology has brought the most current value to the community.
I love that. It's that like it's the currency agnostic perspective that you don't become so caught up or hung up on any one thing, and instead you're focused on the next thing or whatever it is that's going to create more value for more people. I love I love that fact that you're talking about it's reward or value given for value created. And when you keep that in mind, it's actually it's almost it's an astounding little philosophy that if just humanity could keep that front and center at all times, that sense of entitlement might start to go away. That when you say like, yeah, like I shouldn't be rewarded, I should be rewarded for what I like for the value that I create. And when you lose that sense of like entitlement and you say, yeah, like okay, if I create X amount of value, I should get X amount of reward. And I what I also really like bring this again back to your project. I love how you are looking to build something that is not about creating value for you yourself. That was like one of the first things that I recognized in our conversations was you're not hyper focused on creating value for yourself. You're hyper focused on creating value for others because I think that you genuinely just get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment from that mission to help others and to advance the technology and the cause. And the more people that are aware of this stuff, the more stuff that can be built, and the more stuff that's built, the more people that can be helped, and the more people that are helped, the more value is created. Like this, you kick off this really really wonderful domino effect by having that perspective. So kudos to you because that takes a very forward thinking individual and innovator to ground yourself in that, especially in this space where you see so many creators that are doing things to hype and to inspire FOMO and really like focus on getting people like emotionally charged versus engaged and bought into the vision and saying like we're going to build this thing over the long term because we want it to be sustainable, want it to be fun. This is not just about me making a quick million. And the sincerity that you bring to the table in all of that, it to me that was kind of what sold me on really really wanting to be like play some role in this journey with you and the team. So Legioverse. So you've entered the space. You've done some work throughout middle school and as you're growing up. You get to a point where you've started to participate in different games. You've purchased stuff in Sandbox, War Riders. You mentioned. How like talk to us about like that day in November, December where you sat down and said, "I got to build this." So, what is it that you're trying to build first and foremost? And then I want to talk about the actual like that aha moment that you had to ground us in just how far you've come in such a short period of time relative to that eureka moment.
So, yeah. So, first off, there, when it comes to investing in these things overall, one of the reasons that I was so drawn to Mega and why at this point I actually hold more Mega than any of the other metaverses I'm a part of is the fact that it actually has an intrinsic uh, and very dependentistic economy in game that is actually vital not only for the gameplay going back and forth, but also for eventually the integration of things on the IRL level, on the VR level, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was what drew me into that world, especially because it shows the most long term sustainability as to where, let's say, War Riders is a good example. You fight to earn the currency is only valuable because you fight for it, which makes it very circular without a whole lot of room for upward expansion, at least at the current time. Not saying that I don't value that game. I actually think that has a lot of potential moving forward, but it doesn't have the same nuances of economy that Mega does. And that was why about a year ago I decided to start building, put in very very minimalistic investment at first. Continue to build that up over time, and I wanted to see, okay, if I put in this minimal amount, what is it going to be able to grow into? There towards the end of the year, I was like, okay, well, we actually created quite a bit of sustainable growth, through the acquisition of these Mega Cryptopolis assets. And so I started looking at it on a couple of different levels. After listening to a couple of your streams, I started thinking about the barriers to entry for the new players. I started doing a couple of streams myself, started talking to a few people, and the main thing that kept coming up is that people on a couple of different levels, they didn't understand how to play it, they didn't have the time to play it, or they didn't have the money to get in because they missed out on buying in back when you could pick up a parcel of land for 20 bucks. And so those three barriers I saw as, okay, well, these are three major impediments to metaverse in general, but specifically this metaverse, going from anything other than a very secular community of forward thinking but somewhat exclusive individuals to becoming a an overarching value add for the entire, for everyone around the world that just chooses to get in on a whim. From there I started thinking like, okay, well, what would be the solutions there? And the first solution that I thought of was the idea that, okay, right now, we have these companies right inside these games. We have these But they're very much they're just there for show. They are a game mechanic and nothing more. And I got thinking, okay, well, with the fact that metaverse, and especially this past year with how much the NFT community has blown up and it's become very much a trending fad worldwide, NFTs are very still much being treated as just a game. They are not being taken as seriously as what you get even out of the larger blockchain community as a whole. And it's due to the fact that there tends to be a very lax, very relaxed approach to even their governance. Not to take a shout out against MCP, but a great example is their management team and how they will often go long periods of time without putting out any real community updates. And that's something you simply don't see both in the traditional business world or in the larger blockchain world as a whole. And so we started thinking like, okay, well, what if you were to create a corporation that the entire corporation was actually founded in the metaverse and not just a single metaverse, but across multiple metaverses, acting as a bridge to allow for the easy transition of players, to allow for the onboarding of players without the need for extensive capital or time investment. And that was kind of where the idea of LENMetaCorp was founded from, and the Legioverse as a whole. The first part of that, obviously, being the fact that as any project does, in order to grow, we needed funding. Well, how we decided to go about getting that funding was through the creation of an NFT line tied directly to each metaverse that we're invested in, starting obviously as you know with Mega, and creating essentially 10,000 randomly generated characters that are done in the same art style as Mega Cryptopolis that will each have a smart contract backed tithe of 1/10,000th of whatever we generate in game that will go then to the owner of that token. This, we figured, and we've set it so that when we first start minting these tokens, we're going to set the price pretty punishingly low at what we decided is probably the absolute minimum barrier to entry for that entry level player to allow a greater proportion of new players to join this community. Players may not have the time or maybe just not be interested in understanding all the nuances of how to, navigate what is going to make best value, be a part of it, and then also use eventually the resources that we have acquired inside these metaverses as a launch pad so that they can become self-sustainable on their own if they choose to do so afterwards.
That it's I love that like the way that you've articulated that is there being like I guess a couple things to unpack there. The first is recognizing that there is still actually value for somebody to play this game themselves, right? So it's there's that opportunity to be part of the Legioverse and to be part of your community and part of your organization and in your movement, but it doesn't preclude you from being part of the community, I guess the actual metaverse community yourself, right? So there's that
Right.
on ramp that says with the way that you're I think going addressing the the initial investment phase as we're not asking people to we're trying to give people the opportunity to learn about these games and participate and actually earn from these games at a price point that is lower than if they themselves wanted to start themselves, because to your point, like if unless you are pressed for time or you're just completely overwhelmed, usually the easier thing to do if you're looking to say, okay, I've got $5 and then what I can do with myself with $5 is this versus give somebody else $5, you like there's that opportunity cost. But what you're doing is you're giving people an opportunity to be part of something larger than just themselves and larger than just that world that they were looking at, and B, you're also ensuring that with each member of the community that you bring in, you're actually like, you're creating this world where you have a whole bunch of people rooting for each other and for you and for the broader experience, because now we're all in this together. And one of the things that I've seen in MCP specifically that has really helped people just get to that next level is that collaboration, and you're offering the opportunity for people to be part of this community, and then eventually at some point have the opportunity to start their own venture as well. And I think like we're going to talk about like what that means that there is this life cycle where you do want people to come in and be part of your community, but you also want to help nurture, nourish, and develop them so that they in turn can have their own independent operations in these games, start to play them themselves while still enjoying the benefits and everything that goes along with being part of the LENMetaCorp. Um, right?
Exactly.
And that's it's cool because you're not closing the door on any one thing. You're actually giving people the opportunity to have like the best of both worlds. You can leverage your infrastructure, you can leverage, you know, all of your assets to create a positive onboarding experience for people, to give them the ability to live vicariously in these games through you, through the properties. And we're also going to talk a little bit about other ways that you're going to get folks involved with streaming and stuff. But um, I guess like the call I would have is anybody who is looking at what you're building, there is this very, very natural symbiotic relationship between what you're constructing and the framework that already exists. You can be involved in your project in your community, and it does not come to the detriment of your own independent operation. And if you do not have your own independent operation in any of these metaverses, and you are part of this community that you're building, it doesn't prevent you from in turn going off and still playing the game yourself. If anything, it actually should enrich that experience and provide additional rewards, additional benefits and perks that make your transition to like your own independent operator and independent investor in yourself that much easier, and I guess like without as much friction as somebody would have. So I think that's a major kudos and props to you on that piece. Um, so in terms of you were talking to this is what I think was really really cool, right? Because everybody loves NFT collections with 10,000, right? That's the thing. But there is a really 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 cool thing that you're doing with those NFTs. So if I take a couple steps back, your entrance into the LENMetaCorp and your ability to take part and benefit from the advances that your organization makes. If we think about those NFTs, can we think about those NFTs as a share of the dividends and profits? Is that the way that you describe it at its highest level?
Oh, absolutely. It's each individual NFT is hard coded to represent a 1/10,000th share of everything the LENMetaCorp makes in perpetuity inside the metaverse it's related to. So if you own one of our Mega Cryptopolis NFTs, that means that for the duration that Mega Cryptopolis exists and for the duration that we are operating inside of it, 1/10,000th of anything made from collections, from sales, even from the sale of property on secondary markets such as OpenSea, all will be split between the holders of that token.
I love that. And it's easy to say that, but you've actually constructed and engineered the framework behind all of that to ensure that that stuff is happening. Like that's not something that you have to go and manually distribute to 10,000 people. You've actually taken the time to not only build the NFTs as shares, that concept, but also ensure that your contracts and everything behind the scenes. And I'm going to talk like I actually know what I'm talking about with contracts and blockchain, but I think I have all the right words there. That everything you've constructed to enable that actually exists. This is something that you've taken the time to develop something that is scalable out of the gate. And it's not like, all right, we'll enable this functionality and once a month I'll go through and I'll do a batch process to ship out, the 10,000 different shares of revenue that we've had. Like you've constructed all of this already.
Yeah, we have our NFT minting contract, we have our staking contract. There's still a few tweaks and upgrades we want to make over time. Continue bringing more and more value and more functionality to our users. Voting is one of the things that we are hoping to enable as quickly as possible. We're still working on that aspect of. And we're our idea is to make it so that from the first day that this project launches, from the very, from midnight on April 1st, when the first NFT is able to be minted, those that are owning this NFT will be able to see realizable value being created for them immediately. There is no delay, there is no hesitation. Upon purchasing our NFTs, they become part of this economy that we're creating, and are intrinsically tied into everything that we are doing from that point.
It's so cool. It's so cool because I think like what you're introducing is an opportunity at like literally at its simplest, crudest form. It's entering into a rev share, right? It's saying that if you purchase this NFT, um, you are entitled to in perpetuity 1/10,000th of the revenue or the profits. Profits. Profits.
Profit.
Okay.
Sorry,
Right. So
you're correct.
so
Sorry,
one ten
yeah,
thousandth of the profits that this venture receives or makes in perpetuity. And it gives you the chance. So you're standing up these collection of 10,000 NFTs for every metaverse that you enter. So you have, in this
yes,
case, you've got 10,000 NFTs that you will sell that will each function as 1/10,000th a share of the profits of your Ethereum mega cryptopolis operation. You'll then do the
yes.
same exact thing on the Tron side, presumably.
Yep. Yeah. Tron will be the next chain that we're going to be going on to. That we will need to onboard another dev for that, since I've never actually worked with Tron-backed tokens or NFTs. So I'm going to need a little bit of help on that one.
Love that. So now you introduce this opportunity for folks to participate in that. So 10,000 NFTs issued, every one that you own, 1/10,000th a share of all profits realized from the company on the Tron Mega Cryptopolis world. And then
Yeah. If I may, we have a comment there I would like to
yeah,
address just real quick. So how are profits calculated when you reinvest in the game? So actually, 20% of the NFTs are actually going to be locked into a permanent um, staking, or they're going to be locked permanently into the staking contract, with all of the funds that they receive pointed back to our original funding wallet, which will then be used to continue to reinvest into the game. That way, that percentage is never coming out of what our user base is earning. And yet at the same time, the user base will continue to see larger and larger returns through continual reinvestment. Um,
so you can still continue to grow, but it's the retention of that ownership share that allows the corporation itself to hold its fair share of those profits, continue to invest it back into the broader ecosystem while also still enabling those dividends and yields to go back to your investors.
correct.
Love it. And so if you take that concept and that template, what it allows you to do is every time you come across a metaverse or a game or an experience that you feel is appropriate and in line with your brand, with what your community is looking for from what can add value to your community, it allows you to expand into that metaverse with that same concept of issuing NFTs. You have your shares, and so it allows you to fund the journey in that metaverse. Every time you sell an additional NFT or an additional share, you're adding it immediately adds value to all of the NFTs that were purchased and all the folks who hold those NFTs, because those funds are in turn used to buy more land, to buy more assets, to create improvements in your supply chain or stuff like that, which I think that's one of those cool things we typically think about. Like, okay, somebody gets we bring people into a community, and great, the more people the better. But when we actually stop to think about this and say, okay, everything that we do in theory, if we're thinking about this logically and practically, we want somebody coming in to not take away from somebody else. We don't want somebody joining to dilute the experience of others. We want somebody coming in to add value to the experience of others. And that's your setup and the way that you're again, for lack of a better word to say, funding that journey, but building that on ramp, it ensures that the more successful that you are and the more successful your community is at onboarding folks into this community itself, the more value that is created for everybody. And it's not one of those things. It's, like there's so many things out there where it's based off of this Ponzi-nomic model where I've got to bring money in and I just have to keep bringing money in, keep bringing money in to pay out my rewards. But you're creating that self-sufficiency and sustainability because every single thing that comes in is actually going towards creating additional value, and not just immediate value one time, but value and revenue every single day, every single week, every single month. in perpetuity for as long as these games exist. Um, and that
Exactly.
sustainability
And,
is so critical.
right, and that's actually it was one of the hardest parts for us to create when we were making the framework for this project, and something that we put a lot of effort into was the idea of like, okay, inherently, I believe that any system is not a deflationary system is wrong, just straight up. And so that was the very much thing is we're like, okay, we're making only 10,000 of these NFTs, we're locking the contract after that. However, if we do that, especially if we're trying to create this minimum barrier to entry sale for the majority of our tokens, we are very quickly going to run into the problem where we are not going to be able to raise enough money to build anything of truly meaningful value. And so, in order to combat that, we definitely did. We're like, okay, well, 20% is going to be just locked into just a continual cycle of reinvestment. We can't pull those tokens out; they're stuck there. That's all they do is they just keep putting the money back through, back through, back through. In addition to that, there's also the reason why we decided, because originally our initial concept was like, okay, we'll just use like one image for all the NFTs because it's just meant to more be a representation of this value share more than anything else. But why we switched over to doing the generative was to create a secondary market value in rarity trade sales, which you see in many different groups out there, Bored Apes, crypto punks, anything else along that nature. And we've also included a royalty, and it's a little bit higher than average. We're creating a 10% royalty that is going to be deducted from all of the sales of those tokens. But even that will be pointed to go directly back into the funding. So even secondary market sales of these tokens, and especially as these tokens become more and more scarce, as more and more people have them locked into our staking contracts so they can receive those rewards that are inherent to both their metaverse and the Legioverse as a whole. As those prices continue to scale up, as people start paying more and more money for the acquisition of these NFTs so they can in turn stake them themselves, even their purchase of the NFT on a secondary marketplace will also go to benefit the overall fund as a whole.
That is, I feel like we have to pause there and talk about that because that is one of the mechanics that I think we always talk about. Looking for win-wins and creating value proportionally for others, and that mechanic is so important to understand. So you think about like your investment in your share as an investor investing in this concept. It's you own it, right? So it's not like you're leasing that share. You actually own that share, and that means that if you're the first person to purchase a share at prices X, I think you have a scale that you're implementing where you're actually you're providing a discount um, that is going to be gradually removed as more NFTs are purchased, right? So again, you're incentivizing those early adopters, and because you've actually created this opportunity where your share it's marketable as on the secondary market. Me, if I get in on day one and I say, hey, like this is awesome. A year from now, my actual share, there's a couple things backing. There's the value is based off of the backed assets that you have in game and the yield being produced in that metaverse from the LENMetaCorp. So I have that revenue coming in, which also allows me to put a finger on what the actual inherent value of my NFT is over the course of a lifetime. So it allows you to set a new benchmark for value for that NFT and that share that you have, which allows you to in turn, if you say at some point, hey, you know what, like I actually I want to start my own operation and this has appreciated enough to the point where I can sell my share in this to create my own operation. That's actually it's a healthy movement in and out of that ecosystem because as somebody sells their share, somebody else is purchasing it, which is awesome because we've got somebody new into the community that can be helped and can play a role in the community. 10% of that sale price goes back into the corporation itself to allow you to continue to grow that that operation. So the person who's acquiring that NFT, the cool thing is 10% of what they just purchased it for immediately goes into creating value for themselves and for everybody else. Other folks who are in the community actually want to see a very healthy secondary market, not just because it helps the own inherent value of their asset, but because each one of those sales helps the corporation acquire more capital for more expansion, for more optimization. And it's just such a cool concept because we talk about royalties, and usually royalties are looked down on. It's like, oh, yep, okay, great. Royalties are at 10%, they're at 5%, they're at 20%. And we look down on it because as an investor, you worry and you say, oh, well, like that immediately erodes my margin. Yep, there's 10% just lopped off the top. So I need this thing to grow by 20% before I'm even ready to sell it because I need my 10%. For the folks who are looking at that, like it's not like an average NFT collection where the royalty goes right to the pocket of the creator. The royalties are literally a critical way to fund the journey to create additional sustainability, to create additional value for everybody else. So rather than look at the royalty and we typically say, oh, that's all right, 10%, I get it, I pay my fair share. People should actually be looking at saying, whoa, 10%, that's awesome. Every single time there's a transaction, we add value to the ecosystem. And that is
Exactly.
so
It's a
critical.
celebration of
Yes, yes,
it.
absolutely. All right, so 10,000 NFTs for each metaverse that you start or continue an operation in, and let's talk about those NFTs because they're pretty damn cool. Um, you've got this. They're not revealed yet. You've got the structure to them, but they have not yet been revealed, but they will be. So can you tell us a little bit about those NFTs, not just for the utility that they have, but for the actual aesthetic value that they can provide to the owner?
Yeah. So when it comes to that, it's so the NFTs are all being made up of a bunch of generative layers. The NFTs are all being made up of a bunch of generative layers that are all done in the same art style as the metaverse that the token is connected to. So in this case, they are all done to be at least mostly reminiscent of the Mega Cryptopolis avatars, and they're all being done off screen. I have Knox over there, and she has been fantastic for creating all the layers. It's a huge ask as far as the amount of work it is. Since I think right now we're up to 230 layers, I think so far. I'm still building more of them. Still building. Lots of sleepless nights. Yeah, and so each character will be, as is standard, a completely unique digital avatar with a series of different traits that have different rarity levels. And the way that it's going to work for the reveal is originally we had it planned a little bit differently, but we decided to upgrade our NFT contract from ERC 721 to an ERC 721A. And the okay, well, we might be able to do a sneak peek here. But we decided to do this upgrade from the ERC 721 to the ERC 721A for the reason that the ERC 721A upgrade allows to significantly reduce the transaction fee for minting, especially if you're trying to mint more than a single character. If you're trying to mint 2, 10, 20, up to 100 characters in a transaction, it will allow you to significantly reduce that transaction fee cost. However, in doing so, it did mean that we lost a couple of functionalities, like having it so that the NFT would be revealed right when it was purchased. In order to combat that, what we're doing is that the first 2,000 NFTs, which are all locked in at that minimum barrier to entry price, which for our MCPE characters are going to be zero point 0.1 Ethereum. And once all 2,000 have been sold, then all of those characters will be revealed at the same time. So no one's going to really know what their character looks like until that 2,000 sale. At which point the curtain will be revealed. You'll be able to see, what your character looks like, and go through and be like, okay, do I have the high rarity trait? Do I not? Kind of have that big reveal. And then at that point, every other character moving forward will also be revealed as they're minted.
So the question is, and now I know that there is currently a preview of this NFT floating out there somewhere on Twitter. Is there anything you want to share?
Yeah. One moment here. I'm trying to pull up. I can pull up. Can I pull up one of the current models? Okay, just checking with our artist to make sure. Oh, yeah. Trials or your own. Yeah. Okay, so actually, if you go over to our website,
Yep.
Baba, and you actually go to the About Us page, you will be able to see the on my bio. You'll actually be able to see the custom NFT that is me. That we actually are. It is one of the generative characters, the one that's been curated to
Oh,
be
I
me.
love this. I feel like I
Uh,
just want to enjoy this for 1 second before I show everybody else. And there's one person very specifically that I want to Pulse. I know you're here. I know you're watching. For a second, just please take a quick peek at the luscious locks that Lux has. Because one of Pulse's things all along has been, can I please have characters that have long hair? Pulse.
I remember I was speaking with him
Okay.
about that. I
All
was
right.
speaking with him
So
about
so
that.
in that vein, that's why I'm actually really excited to share this. Um, here we go. Let's check this out. Pulse.
Also,
There you go.
yeah, it's a little hard to see, but got the long hair here, got the long hair there.
Um,
And yeah, so all of the characters will be in that same kind of style.
I love it. And Lux, can I if I share your profile image on Twitter, I think that's representative of kind of what what the initial NFT is going to look like before the reveal.
Yes, that is actually the image that is currently labeled to all of our NFTs
Perfect. So
currently.
this is when you initially purchase the NFT, this is what you're getting. So very similar again to some things that other projects have done where it's you've got this mask on the actual identity and the attributes and details of the NFT, but at some point in time, I guess you said when the 2000th is purchased, this this mask is revealed to actually show us this strapping gent right here.
Yes, and there will be there's going to be both male and female characters, and they will have a number of different rarity traits from different like even Maz has gone through and done some wonderful things with creating like really like custom like eye colorations, custom facial hairs, hairstyles, all different kinds of things that will be available across the different models.
I love it. So it's not only is it an NFT that that gives you access to dividends of profits from the corporation in perpetuity, but it also provide like there's there's value and utility behind the value and utility of the NFT in its original purpose, which I like too, because like that's also what's interesting about this too, and I think again like trying to ground people in these are all the things that when Lux, when we first started talking, you were showing your vision. It was like the first thing I had in my mind was like, all right, well, like how is he differentiating this project from everything else, and like how can this project be marketed to stand out from other stuff? And what I really like about this is you're creating a world again when we think about that royalty piece that's in there and how every royalty is actually beneficial to every member of the existing community. You're also creating this cool place where that NFT has an inherent value of 1/10,000th share of the corporation's profit. However, we can't lose sight of the additional layer, which could actually, in and of itself, become more valuable than that 1/10,000th of a share, which is there's emotional and mental value that can, or I guess aesthetic value that can be identified and created from what is rendered when that mask disappears. And
So, Baba, I got to stop you there for a second because there's even, and I can't stop myself from grinning here because there's even an additional value add that we've created beyond
oh, okay.
that.
But wait,
So,
there's more.
yeah, so there is two different parts of it. The first part of it is that part of the expanding Legioverse as a whole is going to be the ability where we are going to have our own three-dimensional virtual space. Right now, we have it slated for first quarter of this coming year because we got to do everything in sequence. But if any of the different NFTs that you're holding that are part of our collection will be capable of being used as your avatar within our metaverse or the Legioverse as a whole. I'm not sure why my camera just got fuzzy. Sorry about that. Get to do that. The second part, though, of the value that it is going to be able to add to the overall community is that certain NFTs will have specific traits, a background, a particular accessory, things like that. And those particular NFTs will actually award access to exclusive spaces within the Legioverse that you will actually have to use your NFT as a key in order to gain access to, which will also create so that, when that mask is revealed in certain NFTs that have these exceptionally rare traits, and we're talking in a collection of 10,000, a few of these traits will be with maybe only 10 copies in the entire collection, kind of rare, will be ones that will generate even an additional secondary market value for those that do want to then go into the Legioverse and use whatever unlockable content that they allow for, and then again have that royalty further go to support the overall community.
So if we think about all the different pieces of value, if we embrace our inner capitalistic nature and we say, yeah, okay, everything's cool, but like, what's in it for me? Where's the value? Show me the money. I'd like to think that we all think differently, but let's be honest, we all do need money to live, and fund our insane hobbies that generally in the space tend to be a little bit more expensive. And Lux, as we've talked about in past discussions, you're getting me into looking at Star Citizen and everything else. So my question, I guess, as I'm asking and answering it for myself is, okay, what's in this for me? So beyond the social nature, beyond the community, beyond all of that amazing stuff that comes from being part of the community that you're building. And I do want to talk, because you've got some really, really cool stuff that's like community centric. I do want to talk about before we get there. You get all of the value adds of being part of a community. You are part of something that is greater than you as a single individual can achieve. You are also getting 1/10,000th a share of the profits of that metaverse. You're getting a piece of art that has not only aesthetic value, but also has utility. So you're getting there's the art, there is the value, the financial value, intrinsically established by whatever 1/10,000th the share of profit equates to. And then there is also the utility or the unlockables that that NFT will bring in the future within the Legioverse itself.
Yes. Also, I just wanted to address a comment that is that Druid it has there. And just no, so the initial minting of the NFT will count as investment directly to the investment fund. Those funds will be used to further increase our holdings within the associated metaverse, which allows us so that, if you highly believe, let's say that you're super bullish on Mega and you think the Axie is absolutely terrible, you can make sure that the money that you're buying into is going only to invest into the metaverse of your choosing, and then it will be any profits that are harvested from operations that happen inside of that metaverse. Excuse me, that will be the profit that's distributed amongst to the token holders. And that does, as I said, include things like secondary market sales of the actual metaverse assets. So if we go on OpenSea and we sell a building in Mega Cryptopolis, those funds will also be pointed over to the token holders.
Awesome. It's layer upon layer of value, and if one isn't appealing to you, like I'm sure there's going to be certain people that like are here for the art, others are going to be here for the social and community, others are going to be here for the financial aspects. There's a lot of cool things there just beyond
Well,
the concept itself.
we essentially just went ahead and looked at like all of the different utilities that are out there for different NFTs, and we said, let's do all of them.
I love it. It's you know what? Hey, I think I think if we were to dissect um your sleeping habits and the way that you invest your time, you can very easily see like how you've managed to get there, because I think the Lux, approximately how many hours in the last 24 hours have you slept? Two.
Too.
That's solid. Two out of 24. That's good. Hey, it's better than
Hey,
zero.
I know I brought them up to you before, and not an advertisement, but focus tape. Yep, focus tape. Lots and lots of focus tape.
But that's
I've got my coffee, I've got my focus aid, and I've got my
all
Legos.
right. All right. Hey, I think when and there's more. There you go. I think like again one of the things that if when I look at what you're working on, there's the idea of the project itself. There's the potential that it has. There's the creativity of the founders. But when all is said and done, the the revenue that comes in from the sale of NFTs and the revenue generated from in game within each of these metaverses, it's all great. But again, the point of differentiation between this project and so many others is the energy that you invest in it yourself. And I think that's the cool thing about all of this is when I look at why I'm so excited to watch this project grow and evolve and adapt, it's honestly, it's not about looking and saying, how big can this thing be? It's where can Lux take this? Because when you talk and as I learn more and start to peel back some of the layers of what you're looking to do, why you're embarking on this mission, what it is about these different things that you find to be so fulfilling, I've had the great joy and pleasure of kind of witnessing firsthand that the pleasure and satisfaction that you get is actually not in the monetary value of something and the monetary value of what you're creating, but it's again in the value that you're creating for others. And I just think somebody that is going to stay up all night to perfect something, to get the contract just right, to get the website just right, we it's very, very easy for somebody to pay a freelancer to throw up a site really, really quick to make things look good. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And I appreciate the fact that you are investing your every ounce of your strength, your time, your energy into into creating this thing. And I know that when you see a founder invest this much of themselves, when you see a founder like just the fact that you're here, we can see your face, we can hear your voice, you're not just a random person. When you take the time to check all of those boxes and to do it in a manner that's not just checking a box, but you're actually genuinely excited. It's not a box that's being checked, it's a milestone being met. That tells me that there's over the course of the journey, there are so many things that can go wrong, but you're the type of person and you have the team behind you that adversity is actually not something that you're going to cower from, but that you're going to look at and say, bring it on. Because with each thing that comes our way that maybe we didn't account for or didn't go quite according to plan, you're actually going to use as an opportunity to make additional improvements to again further that sustainability. It's not a question, it's a statement. I just wanted to call that out because that's the thing that continues to motivate and inspire me. And you're not alone. There are other people like that out there in the world, but it is very, very rare that we have an opportunity to really meet that person and start to get a feel for what it is that makes them tick and what drives them. And I love that we've so far in this discussion, we've been able to kind of bring to life how you went from working on a project that brought you into the space and really set you on this path. And everybody else, like I guess not everybody else, there could be some random folks, but there are going to be people that take part in this initiative and effort with you. This is going to be their origin story in the space. And so out of this, it's not just it's you giving back, it's you creating that opportunity for other people to have these similar aha moments and inspire them to create something that's greater than, the what is it what is that? The parts, what is it? The parts of the whole exceed the
Uh,
whatever that is, that saying. I can never think of it.
the sum of the parts. Yeah, I haven't blanked
Well,
on
you
it
all know what
all.
we're talking about. That thing, that's what happens. No, I love it. All right. So standing up all these different things, I think for the folks here are predominantly focused on MCP. So let's take a moment to look there. So we go through. You have your initial sale of the MCPE NFT series, and
Mhm.
I can actually I'll post the link. I think all links are disabled. Um,
Oh,
but yeah,
okay, gotcha.
shoot it to my DM and I'll post it.
Yeah,
Um,
will do.
so
It's just the main website link to the
sweet.
homepage.
Okay. Um, so the NFTs are sold, which gives people the ability to invest in and be part of the MCPE community within the LENMetaCorp. And so, as you think about how you would invest some of that money, just to really ramp up that operation, can you
Mhm.
talk us without giving away too much of the strategy? Can you talk to us a little bit about like how that sale and that revenue coming in, like what excites you about that that you in turn can feel really, really great about the value that you're gonna be able to create for your community?
Right. So, first, I would also like to preface by saying that the first thing we're doing, actually, something that we're going to be posting up the transactions for later today, as proof of it, is all of the assets that we have built up ourselves over the past year inside Mega Cryptopolis. This is Ethereum City. We are going to be moving those assets into the asset uh, wallet that is going to be used for the company. Meaning that at this point, we are putting those assets into the company as proof again that we absolutely believe in what we're doing, and that means that when you actually look at the breakdown of it, we will only be getting, like, if those assets were to go to sale, we will only get back about 25% of the value of that, and even those assets that we had prior to the beginning of this venture will also be divided up amongst our token holders. We wanted to do that as, again, kind of a sign that we believe in this, we're committed, and regardless if anybody else joins us on this journey or not, we're in for the long term. When it comes to new funding that we have come in, the first thing right off the bat that we're looking to do, and hopefully with the effort and the aid of folks like yourself, is to pick out and purchase one of the districts that is currently for sale on the Ethereum side, potentially multiple, depending upon what seems most advantageous, and then to begin very obviously it's a little bit harder since the Ethereum side has a lot more just kind of chaotic buildings going on in it than Tron does, but hopefully emulate some of the wonderful work that you've even done over in the Divide district on Tron side, and start working to both create shared value across the district, as well as to have a very heavy focus on vertically integrating our own system. So getting level 7 water, level 7 power, residential, getting everything online so that we can start creating sustainable value and not having to pay outside of the corporation for anything, if at all possible. Allowing all of those funds to continuously be recycled back through the company, so that the maximum amount of value will end up going to our token holders. And then, once we have that basic infrastructure set up, we are actually going to be looking to very aggressively try to buy up as much, if not, I mean, obviously not all, but as much of the land within the district that we are owning as possible, so that we can continue, as I said, to recycle those funds back through, make it so that we are losing the minimum amount to the tax proposition, et cetera, and be able to essentially create a LENMetaCorp district that is geared specifically not only to our needs, but to the needs of our token holders that are looking to enter the game themselves, regardless of if that is buying, heavily discounted citizens, near cost citizens from our production, resources that we can provide, building rentals, anything that will allow for that easy integration. And the last part of it, and obviously this is a little bit more speculative since Mega World isn't totally out yet, but one of the biggest areas where we will be able to add value to our token holders is by getting this infrastructure set up before the beginning of Mega World. Because once there is the need for avatars to be moving from building to building, going through and doing all these different tasks, if we can create a heavily dense district full of our own buildings and have the various employees, scholars, whatever you want to call them, that are working with us, that we and we can talk more about later about some of the incentive programs we have to make sure that they are focused specifically towards working with our corporation over others. If we can make it so that we can reduce their travel time by making so that every building down the block is all part of LEN, then we will be able to create a maximization of profits for our token holders that vastly exceeds what any individual is going to be capable of without huge amounts of additional infrastructure.
So you heard that entire strategy, and that is all from Lux. Like what I love about this, it's not, you're not just throwing together an operation saying, okay, like I'll surround myself with people who know what they're talking about. You are actively doing that, but there's also like, these are the games that you've been playing. These are the games that you've been studying and immersing yourself in. These are the games that you've been streaming and the things that you've been taught. And I love that there's so much behind. Like, typically, it's so hard to find somebody that kind of embodies all the most critical components or attributes of what you need to look for in a founder, in a leader, in anybody that you're putting any responsibility into or has accountability for funds, for strategy, for the overall preferred outcomes of a community. And like, you hit everything spot on, right? You recognize that there's not just a way to, to create value for the corporation itself, but also ways to create value and give back to the people who are part of your community. So I love that you were able to frame up again, like, why point one Ethereum into the LENMetaCorp is going to go so much farther than point one Ethereum on its own outside of that. And you're working towards getting to a place where with each passing day, that point one Ethereum goes even further within the operation, because on day one, you don't have the benefits of all of those synergies. But the objective is, with everything that comes in, to get yourself one step closer to advance the operation, but also to start to realize additional added benefits of whether it be vertical integration, of taking advantage of the tax refunds of building your own district, the land kickback of buying land in your own district. And you're recognizing, because this in and of itself is so rare. You're not a district owner yet, but you're already realizing and recognizing the true value proposition of owning a district. It is not in the ownership of the district itself. It is in the construction and development within that district, where you get all of that value back. So I honestly, I don't think you need me. I think you're good. I think you've nailed it right there. But no, I guess so. Like, maybe this is an opportunity to take a quick moment to say, like, when we first started talking about this, Lux, I think the ask that you had of me was, like, provide some guidance and some direction, some thoughts on pressure testing the overall concept. And so I guess, like, what I would love to share with the community right now is that this is actually the very first project in this entire space that I have willingly doxed myself for, to be to ensure that I'm actually able to be a part of this conversation and to be a sounding board for Lux, however I'm needed. So I'm here. I'm excited to talk about this because it's finally giving me that opportunity to say, like, I knew there was going to come a point in time where there was going to be a project that I wanted to say, hey, like, just so you know, like, put on a piece of paper somewhere so there's accountability. This is who I am. This is my real name. And what you've sold me on is that thing that makes me feel like, yeah, like, this is amazing. This is something that could really become really truly awesome. And I'm thrilled that you reached out to me, Lux, because it's an honor and a privilege to be part of this journey with you.
Hey, we're thrilled to have you along the way with it. It definitely, it was that thing that's like, I came up with the idea and literally came up with it, December 22nd. We're sitting there, it's almost Christmas. I was slightly bored because we were sitting there. And so, I was like, hey, here's a project that can take up the next, like, several years of our lives. I was like, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea. I'll give Baba a shout, see what he thinks. Oh yeah, I was building our new couch when when I came up with it.
To go from building from 1 minute building a couch, the next minute building an elaborate, innovative blockchain corporation.
I had version 0.1 of the white paper done before Christmas.
Oh well, Well, there you have it. See, so it's not actually all that impressive because you did have a little bit of a foundation. No, it really is interesting seeing just how quickly all these things came together in your mind. And one thing that Luck shared with me is I think it's I'm gonna use the word cute because I for lack of a better word, I think it's pretty cute. Like as somebody like who really just feels passionate about this stuff. Luck shared with me his challenges with waking up from being asleep and having written a white paper or written down a proposal or an idea, and then only come to find out that it actually just happened in his dream and it didn't really happen. So now he has to sit down and recreate all of that stuff that came to him while he was asleep. And it just it really speaks to again even in those 2 hours where you're selfishly sleeping and not working on this project, man, you're still working on the project. And like that shows me that not only is your consciousness invested, but also your subconscious is invested in this as well, and I think it's a cool thing. It's so rare when we have a chance to be part of something, whether it's something we're creating or it's something that we're a part of, that all-consuming nature of a passion, like, that's how it manifests, like, that's a great gut check that if the fact that that's happening, and anybody else who's going through this, if you're at the point where you're waking up having created something in your dream about this project, about the whatever project you're working on, like, it's probably a pretty strong indicator that this is something that is actually meant to be part of you, part of your life, and take some of that time and energy. So major kudos to you there. Lux, you spoke about kind of that free to play element, um, and the world where in Mega World specifically free to play, scholars, all that stuff is gonna come into to play. And so you immediately have within Mega Cryptopolis, there's like a phase 1 and there's a phase 2, so to speak, on your operation. And one thing that we've talked about is or that you shared with me was that concept of creating a community, and it's not just the collection, acquisition of and management of assets, but it's actually through the creation of a real true experience. And I don't want to say I don't think gamification is the right word there, but like uh, just creating an entire social experience around the games that you're building. So what can you share with us about in terms of how you're trying to create a really truly immersive experience for the folks that are part of the community? So in terms of Mega Cryptopolis, what would you expect somebody who joins the LENMetaCorp or even is viewing and watching from the outside in? What do you expect them to be able to participate in, see, experience, witness, or enjoy just by being part of the community? Take the financial elements out, the social and the entertainment aspects.
Right. So for the token holders and for even non-token holders, though to a somewhat lesser extent, since some things will be behind walls to ensure that there's some exclusivity to the community. But we will be hosting some custom buildings within MCP once those come about. There will be essentially club locations where people can go to socialize, can go there to learn. We will be trying to host both knowledgeable scholars as well as members of the community that have value to add that we can highlight as people of interest to help learn from. We have our Discord, of course, where anybody can join, and we've set up kind of a unique community division with Lux and Nox in order to create a little bit of a interplay within the community, make it so that over time we're also going to be introducing like community challenges, ways for for one side or the other to take part in community building events and both inside the metaverse and outside of the metaverse. And then from the purely entertainment and less interactive side of it, once we start taking on free to play people, and I'm not going to call them scholars, I'll call them more employees in our case, since that's a little bit more accurate. Because one of the things we also realize is, especially when Mega World first comes out, there's going to be a massive labor shortage because there's going to be a lot of buildings that need that labor, and at least until there's a little bit more time for onboarding, there is not going to be a lot of people willing to do said labor. And so in order to cover that, one of the things we're intending to do is we've been thinking like, okay, well, how can we go about making sure that people choose to work for us over anybody else? They'll ignore all those other value offers on the table and specifically look for us instead. And a couple of the ways we've thought to do that is on Twitch. We're setting everything up on the back end to make it so that people can use commands in the chat to move from one camera to another. And we're going to be hosting it so that each one of our employees will be streaming on their own, making it so that all of their streams will be collected and collated into the LENMetaCorp Twitch stream. And then depending, if when we're tracking it, X amount of ad revenue is generated while people are watching this one guy, he's extra entertaining, he's amazingly skilled, whatever reason he's drawing more of a crowd, then 100% of that ad revenue for when people are watching specifically his screen or her screen over any of the other scholars or employees, 100% of that ad revenue will be added to whatever they are making in game from our systems as well. In addition to us making sure that we're going to be offering top of the line citizens for them to use while working on our buildings, even offering the idea that when they're talking, because they've talked a little bit about I believe free to play stamina being separate from the building stamina, making it so that we're even talking about the idea of like, okay, if you do X amount of our buildings throughout the day, then if you have any stamina left over while using our character, you can go do any other jobs you would like to do. And we're not expecting a rental fee for you using our high level citizen for those. We're not expecting a kickback from what you make. It'll simply be a thing of prioritize us. We will make sure that you are paid additional above what you've been making from doing our buildings, and you can then go and run around, do some jobs on your own in your off hours after everything is done. Everything possible to make sure that we are maximizing the value that our employees will get as opposed to what anybody else is going to have to offer. Putting in the advertising revenue and the revenue into advertising and whatnot to help maximize what people are going to be seeing on Twitch, things of that nature, so that our employees will be outperforming anybody else's on the market, as well as creating a good amount of entertainment. Incentivizing those people who are representatives of LENMetaCorp to make their streams more entertaining. To if in War Riders, get those sick trick shots, anything like that, to help make the community a more engaging thing on a constant 24-hour basis.
So what you're saying is, shortly I will no longer be needed to be streaming Mega Cryptopolis because there will be an army of people who are streaming immersive content that we can all live vicariously through, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still want to see
Okay.
your streams though. I mean, I always make sure that I clear some time on Saturdays to watch your
Not
streams.
off the
So
hook yet? Okay.
you keep going.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good. My streams can become streams of me reacting and covering all of your streams. That's what we'll do. But no,
No, in fact, now it's
I,
expecting on their model deal.
Oh yeah. And then now we expect you to jump on with us on occasion. You can help us do a news report.
okay. No, I like it when I vastly prefer when somebody says, show up here, show up at this place at this time, and be prepared to talk about X. That's
Well, and the
so
other
much better.
thing, the last thing I'd like to highlight about what we're going to be doing with this like all-encompassing Twitch stream is that this is also going to give token holders the ability to literally see their money in action. Like it's not a thing of like with a normal company, you get a quarterly stock report or something, and it's honestly either so complex that no one that it doesn't work in the industry is going to understand it, or it's so vague that it doesn't say anything to begin with. In this case, you will literally be able to track in real time through the eyes of the people doing the work your money in action.
It's so cool. It's like every little element or every detail from the minute to the major plays a role. Nothing exists or nothing is happening or occurring just for the sake of it happening. Because to your point, even that, it's like there's the entertainment value of having a bunch of different people streaming what they're doing in game to make money and to advance the corporation, but actually also as somebody who is either emotionally or financially invested in your corporation, being able to see your investment at work, you being able to see somebody going collecting bricks from a building or going and completing a task, and you see those resources of that revenue coming in, and you like in your mind, you're looking and saying, "Oh, yep, 1/10,000th of that action I just got. Yep, okay, 1/10,000th of that action I got." And it's that's a cool concept because it allows you to root for. It allows you to really kind of support, and it also allows you to appreciate all the actions and time that are being spent by that person streaming this experience because you can actually put your finger on everything that they're doing, creating value for you. And if you're not part of that community yet, if you haven't purchased one of those NFTs, then it's another reason for almost creating that onboarding and that marketing that says, like, if you're watching this and you're not looking at each action each time this person goes and does X, Y, or Z, you're getting nothing from it. You want to get something from it because if you want, like, beyond just sitting here watching this, you can actually kind of an indirect way be paid for watching this. You
Right, exactly, and and it's the whole thing of like we're going to create a level of transparency that nobody else has because it's going to be transparency that is real time and in a format that non-technical individuals will easily be able to understand.
exactly. It's a you found a way to kind of connect all the dots and create multiple value propositions while also creating a whole bunch of different ways to enjoy. So you can enjoy, whether it is, if you're just there for love of the game and watching, you're like you got that covered, and that's how you can build a robust, like, invested community. But also by the same token, like, if you are part of this and you're an investor, you get to you get to see how your money is being used. You get to see how the capital is being deployed. All it's just it's a nice experience. I do want to touch this one question here. So Jay, your questions are it sounds more specific to the mega token itself. Yeah, the mega token. Okay.
Um,
So
okay, yeah.
I will actually, I think um, next week we're probably going to talk a little bit about the mega token and liquidity. So it actually, I mean, it does play a role here in what Lux is talking about because mega is a vital part of that game. But a very very quick, super high level, the liquidity is actually there for that token. MCP has set up in V3 of Uniswap. The uniqueness of V3 is that you can add liquidity in ranges. And what MCP has said to us multiple times is we're not going to incentivize or enable people to sell this token into oblivion. There is a point in time where we say, yes, we will provide liquidity and an off ramp for this token. But once it reaches a certain floor point in their minds, they are not going to provide liquidity that enables that token to continue going down. So you will see in Discord people coming and asking and saying, "Where's the liquidity? Where's the liquidity?" Like, it is there. It is not in the range that you want it to be, and it's not in the range. And I will say, Kana, because it is my stream and it's not Discord, I applaud what they are doing because if you look at the folks who are asking those questions in Discord, they are the people who are producing blindly and just immediately selling assets or their resources for Mega, off ramping it into Ethereum or to Tron. And yes, that is part of the game, but there is also, like, at some point you have to look, and there are plenty of people who are exercising responsibility saying, I'm not here to arbitrage the crap out of everything. I'm here to build and accumulate, and when times are good, I'm going to shed some to create some profit and to generate some revenue. When I don't like the price of the token, or I think that's a little bit too low, I'm going to hold off and I'm just going to accumulate. So that range, the liquidity is there. Um, as people start to purchase the token again for a variety of reasons, either with the existing utility or with a new utility that's going to be added with governance and so on, um, that price will jump back up into the range of liquidity that MCP has provided. At which point, that will help to stabilize the price, both in terms of preventing it from jumping up astronomically when you want to buy 10 mega, to as well as preventing it from dropping 10% when you want to sell 10 mega. So my call out to everybody out there who's complaining about liquidity, I would invite each and every one of you to add liquidity yourselves at this level or a little bit below. Do you want to do that? Probably not, because you don't see the value in it. So why should MCP spend their capital to just enable that slide? So some quick thoughts there. Obviously, Lux, like these gaming tokens in each of these metaverses are going to play a critical role in how you manage your operation. So it's important too that we think about everything that we're talking about here. And while you are the first to do this, there will probably inevitably be other operations that spring up modeling their playbook after yours. And I think what's cool is, again, you're looking at this and you are once again not creating an operation that is dependent on the mega token. You're creating an operation that's actually a little bit more dependent on all of the additional surround sound value that comes from the gaming experience, the immersiveness, the social layer, the streaming, everything else. So Mega itself is not the sole way of bringing in revenue. It almost becomes like a bonus in some regards.
Exactly. And eventually, at some point, if it becomes practical, we do have the backend infrastructure already to set up to enable it so that if we end up starting to pull in enough of the native in-game tokens, then they will also be included as part of the dividend that is distributed amongst the token holders. We don't have that integrated right now because it would increase transaction fees without any noticeable difference in the real value that people would be acquiring. But if that changes at some point, it's a click of a button to enable.
That's so cool. So, I mean, I think most of us here, we're fixated on MCP, but your vision extends like well beyond MCP. So, in terms of sharing what you can share, nothing premature, but
Mhm.
what can you share with us around the experiences and the metaverses that you're going to be focused on, either in the near term or aspirationally?
So right now, as far as it goes, is that we are looking to enter any of the metaverses that meet a number of different criteria, and those that are interested in actually looking through what those criteria are. Our white paper is hosted on our website, and in there it does go over what we consider to be points of value when considering metaverse for our system. Right now, we are looking at the addition of the War Riders metaverse, potentially Axie, depending upon how their origin update goes, and then Decentraland. Now, eventually, we would like to add others as well, but it's mainly about finding those points where one of two is relevant. Either there's the ability for a cross-verse or even IRL integrated economy, something that allows for something beyond just the gameplay mechanics to bring value, or there's a heavy enough competition layer to where it could be considered an esport, as that in itself brings a different but also inherent amount of value to the system. And so we're eventually going to be expanding into those worlds. We're going to be essentially modeling the same kind of system in order to bring those online. And it's all about finding the worlds that have the most long-term sustainable value. So a good example actually with that is actually War Riders. I'm not sure if anybody keeps up very well with what they have going on. I was a huge proponent of that metaverse from day one. Fantastic build. And then last year, about September, the updates that they came out with completely broke the game, and I sold off every single asset I had in it. It was terrible. Um, and so at this point, though, they've recognized those issues and they've come out with a roadmap that is going to bring back a sustainable level of play. And that's the things that where with the token that we're building, theoretically, we could make a clan big enough that we could, completely take over the server and just dominate absolutely everything. That is not the point, because if there is not value that can be intrinsically found in a sustainable level for an individual player with a low asset pool, then the value that is there for those that are able to drop $1 million into the game and have a bunch of scholars underneath them is inherently false, because it's a circular economy of a bunch of people that are pulling from but not contributing to. And so it's, and that's the thing, is that, War Riders has come out with a system like, okay, well, we recognize that there's flaws, maybe so that a lone player complete no, even if they buy the most expensive Lambo in the game, they cannot win. They cannot make money. They recognize that, and then rather than saying, okay, well, it's just a thing of everybody needs to join a clan, it's a thing of, okay, here's our roadmap to fix these issues, and that creates that sustainable value in a non like in a metaverse that doesn't rely on that in-game economy feel, but actually that competition feel.
It's again, it goes back to really focusing on how you can create value for different segments of the population, the community, and you're talking about like really emphasizing the opportunity not just to create value for the community as a whole, but to create value where value does not currently exist or there's too much friction to that value for some of the smaller players. And we know that like name of the game with so many of these games and communities is being first, and unfortunately like that first mover advantage, while it should be something that is that's prestigious, but not the only way of making money. And I think we see with the hype and the FOMO of a lot of these projects, not just in the play to earn space, but in DeFi and so many other places. Your initial early adopter makes so much money, and then immediately price just moves up, and there are so many people that are priced out, and then price starts to come back down, and people say, this is cool, and it pops back up, and immediately people say, oh, like this is my last chance because it's going to go up, and it's going to go up higher. People jump in, they buy the high, it drops down lower, and it's this never ending battle of 25% recoveries followed by an even like a lower low. And
Right.
what you're setting up allows somebody to limit that exposure, to limit their liability, while also providing a seemingly, you know, endless runway to headroom and incremental value. As long as the overall health of your operation in the community is sound, it actually doesn't really matter what the inherent price of the token or the in-game economy is, because your revenue and your value is not solely defined by the price of the mega token, by the price of SLP. It's in how you're creating additional revenue drivers and lines on your P&L besides the sale of assets. And I think that's super super important.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So in terms of kind of what you're working on next, so you mentioned April 1st is a critical date for the project in terms of some launching. Um, Walk us through a little bit about what you're looking to do from here on in, where, like what should we be looking for as a community with what you've got going on?
Yeah, so on April 1st is when the official minting contract is going to open up and anyone will be able to interact with. At that point, that's where, the tokens, the first 2,000 will be set at the minting price of the zero point 0.1. And then it's going to, the discount is going to go down by 10% for each sale after that until that 5,000 has ended up where it needs to. And so, until then, we're going to be working on a lot of community building efforts. We're going to be doing, if not daily lives, and at least daily updates, going over what we're continuing to work on to help build up the ecosystem in the background, how we're looking to get everything set up for our strategy so that we can deploy it as soon as we start having those fundings come in. And then also, obviously trying to get the word out there to more people to make sure that when our sale launches, we can get that early first mover advantage. And a lot of that is going to be around helping to create value for the community, both as far as not only this token goes, but in the general education for people of like if they need a group to help them get started and learn about what the different options are, we want to be able to provide those resources for them.
So in the grand scheme of things, if you had to put a percent from like where you started to where you want to be, in terms of just initial launch and getting everything rolling, where do you feel you are right now?
Right now, I can actually say that aside from needing to finish up a few more layers for the artwork, we could actually launch the token today. Now there are more features that we're working to continue building into there. We're as I said, we're looking to add the voting. There are a few things about the staking contract we want to tweak just to make it a little bit more user friendly. But for the most part, our version 1.0 expectations have all actually been met at this point.
That's amazing. So it sounded like Knox, you're the sole holdup right now. Those layers.
Knox, you want
what I
to
heard?
speak on the
Did I hear that
edits for a
correctly?
moment?
Ready to go. Just the art
Yeah.
department.
You have a pile of layers in the layers.
You want to speak? I know you don't want to come on screen. You want to speak a little bit to the art? What all that means? One moment here. She's not looking to go on camera, but I'm going to hand off the mic.
All right, that's fair.
I've been up all night.
And Jay, we'll talk more about Mega next week for sure. It's a great topic to discuss. Plays well into this. I believe I have a special guest joining next week as well. So we will talk about Mega. We'll talk about liquidity. Those are a couple hot topics. So definitely next week. Great questions though. No sweat, buddy. And Remedy, your question earlier. So Remedy's question was, has Lux contacted MCP yet with proposals in the project? I think we'll see what he says, but essentially, MCP is MCP, right? So there's communication that needs to be established, but this is actually, I think, a great point for MCP recognizing that there are different ventures that are going to sprout up that are going to actually be value adds for them too. So when you think about the business development aspects of them growing that project or this project, this is a critical relationship that has to be established, whether it's MCP and Lux, or down the road MCP and Adidas or Nike or Domino's, whoever it is. Like this is a great proving ground for what MCP can provide in value, or in partnership with other ventures that are looking to build something beyond the game itself within the decentralized city. Knox, are you there?
Yes.
All right. How is that? Can you hear Knox, or we'll? Okay.
Yes. It's on a slight delay, but we're good.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about the art.
Oh God, it's it's coming along. There's tons of layers to still work on. That's why I said he was being very modest on saying just a few layers. It's been fun. It's a journey, many layers made, and a mistake and having to be deleted and reworked.
And what are you most excited about? So obviously, like there's I think we've talked a little bit, and I think you definitely you've shared that part of your appreciation is seeing the joy that comes to Lux and seeing this really come to life. But this is the art and the NFTs. It's such a huge portion of the time that you've spent and invested. What's your personal, like? What is it that keeps you so invested in the creation of these NFTs? The thing that makes you sit down and say, yes, whether this is I'm going to spend 3 minutes working on this, or I'm also not going to sleep tonight. I want to get this just right. What is that? What does that look like for you?
I mean, there is a certain joy. Honestly, a lot of the artwork that you're going to be seeing on the NFTs that are for the various systems that we're going to be creating, like Mega and Axes and all that. It's not honestly my stylized art that comes naturally to me. But I like dabbling. I like dabbling in many different mediums. I've done various works with acrylic and spray paint, and this is actually my first major dive into digital art, which is a lot of fun, with the exception of helping with websites and creating backdrops for websites.
So you essentially with each of these metaverses, as you create and prepare and design these NFTs, it's almost like, and I'm not an artist. I was a kid that couldn't color inside the lines, just hated like the glue would be on the table and not the paper. But like it
Never follow within the
what's
lines.
that? Never felt
Never
that's
follow
right.
within the
Yes. Damn straight. Yeah, I wish 5-year-old me had the balls to say that to my kindergarten teacher. But like so you have to essentially like throw out, or I guess not throw out your own style, but you have to redevelop your own style with each of these
Yes.
projects because it's almost like, like you have a framework and you've got some guardrails you have to maintain to ensure that the asset or the artwork itself is closely tied to and related and reminiscent of that project while also still putting your own spin on that. So how do you prepare
Very much so.
yourself for like take your own style and then approach something like the MCP NFTs?
That is something completely opposite.
Yeah, do the completely.
It's completely opposite. Yeah, you have to basically throw away everything that comes naturally to you. So, where I enjoy things like watercolor or clay because it's completely messy and fun, and you don't have to keep within the lines. This one you have to be very precise with lines, even though you will see a little bit of the Knox touch to, sides not being absolutely perfect, but it's definitely stylized after MCP's artwork.
Now, we we're here to talk about to talk about LENMetaCorp, but my question for
Mhm.
you is, coming out of this, will we start seeing, or are there already Knox collections that are available for people who want to collect pieces of your work?
Oh, my personal work? there will be.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I can actually speak more on the technical side of that too.
What was that?
I can speak more on the technical
Yes,
side of
he's building the
collections.
technical side of it, and it's like his dangling carrot for me. If you get all these layers done for this project, you can work on your personal stuff, which I do in between here and there. But honestly, there's not very much free time as we still both do work.
There will be free
There will
time.
be free time. I know there will be. I have tons of. I mean, I think you saw on the website. I have like my particular style of pinup art that I absolutely love. That's more cartoon. But you probably saw where in the Knox side, there's my favorite character, Blue Nazi.
I love it. Well, it
Right.
is a contrast. It's very. That's why I was trying to figure like how do you like going from
Humanoid
your
cows.
Knox look to the Lux look. But I think what's probably interesting too is that like what Lux was talking about with kind of the gamification and the picking of sides within your Discord and community, that there are these two very different perspectives and two different focuses and skill sets and experience and I guess just like overall the philosophy of the Lux side versus the Nox side. Like I think
Right.
it's cool what the two of you are doing in terms of creating diversity within the community itself. That there are two, like there's a yin and a yang. Um,
Yes.
it's really cool. Work life balance though at Alien Metacorp doesn't sound like it's too healthy though.
Oh no, it's
Oh,
perfectly
perfectly healthy.
healthy.
Yeah.
We
That's yep. Keep
we
saying that.
enjoy
Yeah, no,
doing
just
the
keep saying
time
that.
at work ends.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
So
Hey,
Knox,
what is it that the kids say these days? What's that? You only live once, YOLO. I absolutely hate that term, but it's a cheapened version of the Latin form, so we will go ahead and use it. Um, yeah, we're only around once, and we enjoy doing this. It's definitely something that when I first met Lux, that I saw that he was gung ho, and you don't find that much passion these days in people and projects that
Passion,
they hold.
obsession.
Passion, obsession, whichever you'd like to call it, but it's I live vicariously through that because I dabble in so much and don't have a direct passion in one solid thing. But he allows me to do what I enjoy, which is the artistic form of it. Plus, I get to edit all his papers, so
There you
hey.
go. So what's one thing that that before we wrap up for today that you think Lux should ensure that everybody is aware of? What's that thing that we should have him close out this conversation with?
Ooh.
I'm gonna put that on you.
Don't put that on me. I always look up like to him for for this kind of thing.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear anything?
Huh.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
He doesn't have the
Ask
headphones
him.
on anymore.
No, he doesn't. I just
That means
told him.
I can say, well, actually I can say whatever I want,
Say whatever you
and he's
want.
still gonna
Say
hear,
whatever
but
you
it'll be
want.
on a 10-second delay if he's watching that stream.
Right.
So what's the one thing that when you think about like beyond the mechanics and the all the cool elements of this project, the technicals, the financial, all that stuff, like what's one thing that we need to put Lux on the spot and ask him about with regards to the how he's personally investing his time, his emotions, all that into this. Let's end with the what makes what is it about Lux that we all need to learn to truly appreciate what's happening with this project?
As much as he likes to put me out there as the more creative side, the dude has a pretty outrageous, like outside the box thinking and creative side himself. A lot more lighthearted than he would come off with his paperwork.
Okay. All right.
I like my work. Thank you very
He
much.
loves his paperwork. Hey, you guys like charts? You like you like spreadsheets, but he's definitely more than that. I think that's where the passion comes from.
I can appreciate that. I like that about the the partnership that you have there is you've got one side art, one side spreadsheets, and I think that's a really important balance to have. You can have one without the other and be successful, but it's actually really truly like it's the merging of the best of both worlds that allow you to ensure that what you develop and what you build is balanced, doesn't start to overweight more for like the analytical, that there's something for everybody there. And that's why like I love like what when Lux talks about his aspirations and ambitions for the project and the way he's approaching like the strategy, like that's the stuff that really intrigues me. But if that's all we're talking about, if that's all that you're bringing to the community, it's like there's a segment that we're missing, which is the social elements, the art, the culture, the entertainment, all that stuff. And that's why like I love the fact that the two of you are working on this together and bringing little pieces of yourself into this project.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I enjoy watching is the bridging of the gaps between those guys. So.
But all right, Lux, back to you, my friend. We're gonna close up, but I wanna do a quick little Q&A. All right, so first, before we wrap up, anybody in chat, if you have any questions, let's toss them out there now for Lux. You know, Lux, I think this is got to be one of those moments where all the work that you've done. I'm sure that each passing day you're kind of splitting at the seams, really wanting to get the message and the words out there. Talk to me a little bit about like how have you been able to contain yourself and just continue building with that strong desire to share, but knowing like nope, like build, wait until we're ready, then share.
Well, I kind of just every time I felt that way, I just worked faster so I could get to the fun part faster. You know that TikTok meme right now. Let's skip to the good part. Well, didn't skip there, but sprinted.
And that song is now going to be stuck in my head. That is, yep. I appreciate it. It's investing the time here and now, because the more time you invest right here and now, the quicker you can get to that good part. That's
Exactly.
All right. And now I'm gonna ask this question. So with regards to those avatars, you mentioned there was one thing you said about like the interoperability and the utility behind them. So the avatars themselves, or I guess I'm sorry, the NFTs and the artwork there. Um, how does that impact? Not I don't want to say the gameplay, but when we talk about the utilization of that NFT, is there anything about like the transferability of those attributes of the look and feel into specific games?
Yeah, so eventually, so one thing and what we can do right away when we start like a Decentraland version of our fund is Decentraland already has the ability to port in, skins and things like that. So the NFTs that you have will be able to be used to generate the same skin inside of those game environments. Now, when you go to something like Mega, Mega is a closed system. They don't have that ability, at least yet. So unfortunately, we won't have that interconnectivity at this time, though hopefully at some point we will. And then, as I said as well, the Legioverse is going to be its own meta environment as well. Right now we've kind of been bandied around a couple of different concept ideas of having like I'm not sure you remember the old like Spyro video games with the portals to jump through to go different worlds. Kind of having a world like that that is a crossroads between different metaverses. And so we're also going to make it so that those characters will be able to be imported as skins and avatars to use within those systems as well.
So does that mean that, technically speaking, if MCP changed something on their side, that the NFTs that we purchase for Mega Cryptopolis, those 1/10,000th shares, that hypothetically, if MCP changed their platform, people could import those skins onto their avatar?
Yes, we would need to enable the functionality on our end as well to work with the contract on MCP's end. But yes, we would completely be able to do that.
I think it's cool. That's something that a lot of people have talked about, is like MCP eventually going from being the folks that are developing and building everything to being the platform and opening it up to
Mhm.
allow others to create those experiences and to evolve and adapt. And I think this is a great example of, if that time comes or when that time does come, this is a perfect example of how individual developers or different projects can actually create a whole bunch of really cool stuff that doesn't change the fabric of the game, but it does impact the experience and allow a lot more creative expression, a lot more utility, not just for the stuff in game, but to be able to bring this NFT. We go back to, again, it's you're almost like, you could get to a point, in a year or so, or maybe sooner, where the actual value of the NFT is not in the share of the profit, but in what else it brings to your experience. I feel like it's something that will be easily overlooked by most, here and now, but it's one of those tailwinds that it's like there's so much cool stuff that could happen if depending on how these games develop. And I got to give you
Yeah.
props for that, because the way that you're building these things, there's no one single point of failure in the value proposition. There's a whole bunch of
Well, and
things.
and let me bring up the concept that we have for when we're able to fully deploy the Legiverse as a whole of being able to log into the virtual world that is the Legiverse. You've been let's say you've been working over in Axie Infinity for a while. You go into the Legiverse. You can see the almost bizarre style market set up. You go over and you're able to directly and in a completely frictionless exchange move SLP directly for, let's say, stone inside Mega Cryptopolis with a zero latency, either low or no fee, depending on how we're able to set it up, system that will allow you to just frictionlessly move between metaverses and literally even go from, okay, I was in Axie Infinity, I use my web plugin to move over into the Legiverse and then literally walk your character in Legiverse. You go over, you buy your stone from Mega Cryptopolis, um, with your Axie Infinity SLP, and then move directly through one of these portals over there on the side of the wall and end up directly inside of Mega World. And now you've got your stone.
That's brilliant. And honestly, like, Lex, what you're talking about too is, it's great for these games as well, because it's like, I take myself as an example. I'm only playing MCP. I thought about getting into PegXC a while ago. I chose not to. I haven't gotten into Axie. I haven't done anything else. Part of it is because, like, just lack of time, but also part of it is just not wanting to start fresh and not have the synergies of my supply chain working for me. If I want to build a new Mega tomorrow, I can produce everything I need to build it. So I just need to find the money for the land. But the thought of going into Axie and having to buy Axies, or going to Peg Axie and having to have to buy the Pegas, or Warriors, like any of these things, there's actually like you lose all of that vertical integration. But with what
Right.
you're describing, you actually create a marketplace that would allow me to take advantage of my vertical integration in Mega Cryptopolis and what I produce, where the actual cost to me is so much lower compared to the perceived value of a buyer, that I can, in fact, directly or indirectly, take I guess the optimizations and the efficiencies and the potential profitability of my operation MCP, and convert that over into similar or proportional value in another game, in another metaverse, that allows me to expand my own operations and my own portfolio in a way where there's not as much capital being burned, because it's that initial outlay and investment that just hurts the most, because you have no synergies. There's not, like, literally
Right.
everything is market price.
Well, and essentially what we're going to be building, and to be put in very blunt, non-abstracted terms, the Legioverse will operate as the metaverse's first commodities exchange. That is what it is actually going to be. Is it will be a physical forum for the direct trade and or sale of commodities, similar to how a commodities exchange might function to move commodities between countries in a low friction way by allowing the sale of a commodity to a warehouse and the purchase of the same commodity but a different actual physical unit of the commodity in another warehouse in another country. That is what the Legioverse will enable. So we will essentially be able to, by hosting large amounts of these different resources within the Legioverse and within each of these metaverses, we will be able to arbitrage the value back and forth between these different metaverses, while essentially eliminating the need for any large scale fee infrastructure like what you currently see. If you just want to take and be like, all right, I want to cash out my BZN and War Riders, and I want to move it over into Mega Cryptopolis.
I feel like that's going to be one of those things that we've all just been desensitized to, the 100 different steps that it takes to move something from, or I guess to transfer value from one metaverse to another, and then just how much value is lost in that process, in fees and everything else. And what you're describing is something that, again, it's like, but wait, there's more. So it's not just the operation you're building in game, but again, that total ecosystem, and you're working to solve for a variety of different challenges. And I can see a world
Mhm.
where somebody who has invested themselves either financially or emotionally in your project, like, there should be excitement, because it's not just like one thing. Okay, in a couple months from now it's going to launch, and then great, like, we're done. Okay, now we sit back and we start collecting, and we know we've got our yield. There's actually this indefatigable drive to just solve problems and reduce friction.
Well, and let me also bring up a concept, and I think it's funny that so many people in the NFT community, considering they're the ones that actually came up with this concept, don't understand it. Not to be overly blunt, but it's the idea that the entire idea of the NFT is an NFT is supposed to be an immutable object that is ownable, not as a part of the game environment or whatever that it was created in, but as its own independent entity. Why is it that no one has created anything that uses NFTs that were not created by them? It's essentially like when every state in the early American colonies made their own currency, and none of them worked together. And so it's the whole concept of currently NFTs, as much as NFTs are touted as being these independent objects that are separate from the world that they were created from. Currently, NFTs are 100% exclusive to the environments that created them. The Legioverse is going to essentially break that, the fact that we're going to make it so that you can walk into a Mega Cryptopolis car dealership, purchase your War Riders, like SUV while paying an SLP. Because why not?
That
Essentially, our intention eventually will be also, the idea that like with people like Maz and even a couple other digital artists we've talked to, the idea of being able to host everything from art in similar setup, anything else along those lines within the Legioverse, to make it so that we are going to take the idea of what the version 2 exchanges like OpenSea have come up with, and we're going to upgrade those to the next level, to where rather than those operating as an exchange against a set dollar currency, be that Ethereum, be it USDT, whatever currency it may be, and instead turn it to the level of a direct communication in a more of a DEX format.
Is so much that you're building. There's a lot to unpack, but I think it's one of the cool things is you've got the opportunity to roll these things out in a nice sequential logical manner, and I feel like
Yes.
you're going to bring a lot of people along on this journey that it's going to take a little time for some people to see the inherent value of one thing versus another. But the more I talk to you, the more I again like I just I'm genuinely excited about what you're creating and what you're striving to do and the reasons. I guess even more importantly, the reasons for why. Um, it's you're taking time to do things the right way. You're looking to figure out how can I solve yet another challenge for somebody out there in the community. And you're creating, part of being a creator and an innovator is accepting the fact that at some point in time, while you will be first to market, there will be a second to market. And actually being okay with that and saying, yeah, you know what, like my role in this is I'm gonna be the one that breaks through the ice. I'm gonna be the one that really blazes that trail. And then I'm never gonna sit back and be content to say, oh, I was first, but I can also appreciate and actually kind of really accept the fact that there will be others that come along that have their own spin on this idea, and that innovation, you take as much pride in your product, both your initial and what it becomes, as well as the role that you play in opening people's eyes and inspiring others to do things to reduce friction. And that, my friend, like as I talk to you, I love, like, that's the thing that sticks out to me is the genuine desire to remove friction and to create value for people, because you need, or we need a lot more of that in this world, and you're embodying that which we should strive to be as humans and innovators. I want to take,
Right.
but before we drop that, there is one, it's not quite as sexy or as exciting as all the different things that you're doing, but in this space, we're surrounded by rug pulls. We're surrounded, like, and lots of things we've been desensitized to. But there's one thing that you're doing, or that not doing, you've done, that really I think is important for people to know, which is you have taken all of the legal, compliance, and regulatory steps to ensure that this is not a random Twitter account or a random webpage. This is a legal entity registered that is bound by the laws and regulations that hell, if I do anything wrong, I'm actually held accountable and liable, because there is a document that has my name, that has your name, that has the actual, like, you are signing up saying that myself and this corporation and this entity are accountable for our actions. Talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit about, like, the legal, compliance, and regulatory hurdles that you have gone through and succeeded in, because I think that's important, that when people understand that when they look at this project, it's easy to just, say, yeah, I want to be part of this, throw some money at it and say, oh, well, I hope this works out. I want people to see just how much effort you've put in and how much of yourself and your own, I guess, freedom you've put on the line to ensure that this is done the right way.
Right. And so, all right. So what we did is we actually, we looked around, and here in the U.S., the absolute best place for us to go to is Wyoming, because they actually, not only do they not have New York's absolutely insane block law. I I don't want to even get into that. But they have a specific business filing for opening a DEX, which is technically what we're building. Since there is a decentralized setup for it, and there's going to be voting that is going to be enabled to allow for the community to actually decide direction of what goes on within the company. And so, we've gone ahead. We've already found because in Wyoming you have to have a registered agent. You are not allowed to just file yourself like with Nevada or somewhere like that. And so, we found a registered agent. We've gone through the initial filing. We have to wait until we actually enable voting to actually get the licensing as a DEX, which is one of the reasons why we're working so hard to get that done. But we already have all of the paperwork laid out, all of the formalities ready to go. We just actually have to be able to prove that decisions are actually up to a decentralized voting process before we're actually allowed to call ourselves an actual DEX.
It's another point of differentiation, like the fact I myself, like, I will not fall asleep at night thinking about all these different challenges, and there's so much coming in the next year or two with regards to regulations. Like, it's just we're kidding ourselves if we think that this world of anything goes Wild West, like even the Wild West came to an end, right? You know,
Well, and something to that point, and a good thing to bring up is about the Wild West. Is, I mean, I was a part of the blockchain community early enough on to where we were a group of hackers and techno anarchists for the most part. I remember when the Ethereum DAO hack happened, and the hackers that pulled that off and eventually led to the creation of Ethereum Classic were celebrated as the biggest badasses because they managed to steal 22 million Ethereum. It wasn't a bad thing, it was awesome. And so I've seen, and after that, I saw the massive ban hammers of regulations come down. Actually had previous business ventures that I was employed with end up completely being erased off the map, not because they were unethical, but because they were not able to come to the compliance of the current set of regulations. So, that's one thing is I will preface the NFTs that we are selling technically are a security token. For anybody that doesn't know, a security token by US law is one of the most horrific laws, in my opinion, that there is, because it essentially states you're not allowed to buy it unless you're an accredited investor. You're not an accredited investor unless you can prove that you own at least $10 million in liquidity. That cannot be crypto, which essentially means unless you're already rich, you're not allowed to own it. Or you're allowed to own it, but you're not allowed to buy it. Currently with NFTs, that law does not apply because they've stated, at least with the current set of laws, that NFTs do not count as security tokens, which is the only reason why we're allowed to sell this the way that we are. Otherwise, we literally have to be requiring both know your customer or the KYC, the anti-money laundering, and a check to make sure you're an accredited investor, which literally means needing to check your bank account to see if you have that much money in a registered United States bank, which is all just terrible. That's one of the reasons why we're also pushing so hard to get this out while we can, is because our entire idea here is to help lower the barrier of entry to people that are just trying to get into space, people that don't have the capital to go in there and buy a bunch of megas or buy a district or any of that kind of thing. We would not be able to do that once the accredited investor law applies to NFTs. However, we can do our sale prior to that, and at the same time have all of the regulations, even above and beyond what is currently required. Like, I mean, Bobby, like when we were doing the whole like the legal stuff to bring you on as an advisor, none of that is something we technically have to do right now, but we want to be ahead of that curve. That way, when they eventually come in, they say, "Oh, well, you need this, and you need this, and you need this." We're not forced to go into our token holder and say, "Sorry, we just shut down business for 6 months while we get verified." We can just say, "Here's what you need." And because we've already finished our token sale by that point, if they want to come and say, "Well, you can't sell these tokens to anybody but accredited investors," we can say, "Great, we're not selling tokens anymore."
you've thought it, that's what I love, because I remember some of our initial conversations, and I was hesitant because I was saying to you, like, hey, listen, like, there's gonna come a point in time where I'm gonna dox myself at the point where I understand all regulations, I understand what my responsibilities are, and that I can make decisions, understanding the repercussions of my actions and being able to be held personally accountable for them. I was like, until then, though, like, I'm just like, shit, like, what if I say something that somebody interprets as an opinion or as advice or any of that stuff? And talking to you, it was like, it's refreshing because I actually feel like we we need to be accountable for the things that we say and the things that we do. And there's so much that we can there's only so much we can do to make sure, like, yeah, like, common sense has to apply. Like, if I send a tweet out and it says, "Hey, like, look, this is a really cool token," like, you know what? I'm sorry if you go and you just ape into it and you buy it. That's on you. That's not me. But in the back of my mind, isn't it actually good for us to gut check everything that we do in terms of saying, like, do you still have a responsibility to not mislead, to not intentionally mislead? And what you've done, like, it's just like it's gotta be, for me, it would be like the most boring part of any project is to sit down with a lawyer and say, all right, well, talk to me. This is what I'm trying to do. Now, how do I do it? And then how do I do it legally? And then how do I do it legally without diluting like the entire value proposition? And like you've gone through all of those steps. You've sat through those discussions, you've strategized, you figured out how can I build something that I can that works today but has a shelf life. And that shelf life is so important. But we talk about sustainability. Sustainability is important. Sustainability is a moving target. Shelf life is not. Shelf life, like you have to be able to go to market with something that you feel confident that no matter what happens, you have either accounted for it and you've built it into your initial framework, or you've accounted for it and you have a plan of action. And by you taking those steps to incorporate, to create a legal entity around this, it is a signaling that you yourself understand and willingly hold yourself accountable for the actions that you take, that the entity holds itself accountable for those actions that you will, regardless of whether you agree with them or not, as regulations, as laws come into play, you will abide by them and you will evolve and adapt, and that your investors don't have to feel anxious about when a new law is passed. That they know that you're there, that the whole the lifeblood of this venture is in your preparation, which you've done. So at the bare minimum, people should look into this and say, like, I'm crazy, or I guess I think people who are buying into projects now, and they're projects that are preaching like being around for 5, 10, 15 years. That's great. That's a wonderful mission and objective to have. Now show me how you've prepared. I don't mean financially. I mean, how have you prepared yourself psychologically and legally to weather whatever storms, because there will be storms. They're not going to be, we're not talking about surfing, we're talking about a tsunami. There will be those times where everything that we thought was, or everything that was true yesterday, gets shaken and disrupted. And you're prepared for those disruptions, you welcome them, and you've taken that time to, again, just take stock of the landscape as it is today, and the landscape what it can be down the road. And you acknowledge that you can't account for everything. The US government's going to do its thing, the EU, like everybody's going to do their thing. But you're not closing your eyes and going full ostrich on us, putting your head in the sand saying like, no, like this isn't happening, this isn't happening. No, you're prepared for it.
Well, the lucky thing about spending most of my life at this point working in blockchain is the fact that blockchain moves very, very fast. Regulation moves very, very slow. I'm very confident in my ability to always stay ahead of the regulation.
That's key.
And one last point I'd like to bring up as well, and this kind of goes off of the main project, but when it comes to our philanthropic fund, which if you look into our white paper, 1% of all of our of everything that we build is going to go towards various charities that are decided by our token holders, as well as on occasion we will be, and we actually just recently did release a token that is for aiding with the Ukrainian efforts. One of our actual team is from the Ukraine and is currently experiencing all of that. But on the point of regulation, one of the other things we're currently pursuing, and it's a long process, so it's going to be a while before it gets finished, but we're currently pursuing recognition from the IRS for that token, so that it will also be able to actually, because we're also trying to think at it like, okay, well, how can we build on that side as well? Recognition with the IRS to even be able to consider things like that, like actual tax write-offs and whatnot, as opposed to the somewhat nebulous, is it a write-off? Is it an exchange? Is it, anything else?
It's just I admire the heck out of everything that you guys have done. I hope that it serves as inspiration for folks that are looking to do something similar. That again, like even though it's not always great when somebody takes an idea and puts their own spin on it, but that there will be others that follow suit, that follow in your footsteps, and when they do, you've made their lives a little bit easier. You've made it easier for somebody to create value for themselves and hopefully for others in this new world, and ultimately that's just that human responsibility is there. And I love, like, you talk about philanthropy and the opportunities that you have to create value for others through direct philanthropic means. There's also the philanthropy that you as an innovator and entrepreneur are indirectly creating for people. And I got to give you props for it. I do want to share. So we've got a Discord that I can share. Let me just share this super quick in chat.
Yeah, we're still fine tuning various little tweaking parts of it, but it's getting
Awesome.
there.
No, so if anybody wants to continue the conversation, learn more about what Lux is creating here, the invite for the Discord is in chat. Would encourage you all to join there, to take a look around, understand that it is an MVP and there's lots of iterations to come. But Lux, thank you for joining. Thank you for building this, for taking some time to walk us through this amazing idea, and thank you to everybody who joined. I hope this answered some questions, but I also hope it prompts a lot of questions, because there is just a ton to unpack here, complex
Yes,
topics,
we encourage all
and
questions, and we're always
there
in
you
the
go.
Discord.
And Lux loves the questions, so hey, thank you so much, Lux. Thank you everybody else. Thank you, Knox, for jumping in there and sharing some stuff on the art. Um, I will see you all next Saturday. A little agenda to be determined later this week, but thank you everybody again for continuing to tune in and support the folks that are here sharing and just continuing to help each other in the community. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday, a wonderful weekend. And when Monday comes around, for those of us with day jobs, well, don't worry. Friday and Saturday will be here soon enough. So thank you all. Lux, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone in the chat. It's been awesome.